7 minutes.
Hello, and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today, I have the next part of our Building Muscle series with Brandon DeCruz. And this is a hard topic, an extremely hard topic, especially for females. But why is that? I think it's because of marketing and the images that were shoveled in our face. Lean this, lean that, photoshopped this, photoshopped that. Oh, and which females are on illegal substances that make them look lean year round, and all of these other fabricated images that just, well, it's not even that. It's someone, I know I can relate to this. I don't know if any of you listening to this can relate. I would love to know, let us know. Is you see this image of a woman. She looks lean. She looks like she has less body fat, and she's on the, let's just say she looks lean and she has less body fat. We see ourselves. We don't see ourselves as we are. So we think, okay, so she looks lean. I look like the way I am now. I just need to diet. I just need to cut carbs. I just need to train harder. I just need to add in another training day. Maybe that will help. The more the better, right? Or I just need to add in this so I can build muscle and stay lean at the same time. But then I also need to make sure that I diet so that I look leaner. But little do we know that that woman actually weighs more than you, has more muscle mass than you, and that dieting is probably going to get you to a worse outcome and nowhere near to where she needs to be, where you need to be, where you want to be. And I know this because I spent 4 years on my own cycling doing that same bullshit. And when I look back on the past, it's like, if I just saw myself as I was, my physique would be fucking incredible right now. Because I lost so much muscle mass and I wasted so much time dieting. Because when you're dieting, you risk so much muscle loss the further that you push it, the longer that you push it, and with the wrong approaches. And sadly, that is a reality for so many women these days. And it's kind of why a lot of people struggle with perimenopause. It's why a lot of women struggle with their menopause belly, as they call it, because they've spent all of this time dieting. They've never given themselves sufficient time to build their calories up. So with that, I want to have a little discussion with Brandon at first before we go into the actual podcast. And I know that he's a male, so I'm going to kind of get him to use his clients as the example instead. But there's me, and there's some of your longer term clients, or just females that you know. We have sufficient muscle mass. We're at a place where people would be like, I want your body, or that is like our ideal physique, because it has a lot of muscle, it looks lean, and we stay lean year round pretty much, which is the fantasy of so many people. We didn't get here overnight. We spent time building muscle. Like, what exactly does it take to get to a place where these people, because you're included in this, but it's just that you're not on that female side, but we can bring you into this too. What is it that actually led us to be so successful to a point where we can actually maintain this level of leanness year round, where it isn't so much of an issue, where we can eat a lot more food to maintain this?
Yeah, so I think the biggest bottleneck that I see with a lot of the women that I work with, and now just so the audience realizes, I've been coaching at this point 11 years, over 1,100 clients. And right now, my roster, I always do these analytics and stuff. I have 60% female. So I work with predominantly women at this point. And one of the number one, I guess one of the most common conversations I have with women is they will come to me with a very specific goal. And I am a body composition and physique coach. So it's generally they want a better body composition. They want bigger glutes. They want a leaner physique. They want toned, a shapely physique. They want to be leaner. And oftentimes they will give me they'll give me either a description, or most commonly, and this, I want to make this very clear, I do not encourage this, but the case is they'll generally give me an image from someone off Instagram, or they will send me a client transformation that I've made with another woman that's in a similar age category as they are. And they will say, I want to look like so-and-so. So I'm going to give you a perfect example. I've been working with one particular client. Her name's Nikki. She has a very large social media following. And she came to me to restore her menstrual cycle. So she had dealt with hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is the loss or the cessation of a menstrual cycle for an elongated period of time. So to be categorized as having HA, you would need to have lost your cycle for 3 months or longer. However, when she contacted me for coaching, she had gone 3.5 years without having a menstrual cycle. And essentially why that was, and she's completely fine with me sharing the story. She's went on many podcasts. I've encouraged her to do so. And together we've been able to share her story because she has come so far. We've been working together almost 2 years, and it's a radical transformation, both physically and mentally. And so she came to me about right under 2 years ago, and she had lost her cycle for 3.5 years. She was very lean. She was like living lean for the gram. And she had lost her cycle. She had downregulated thyroid production. She had downregulated hormonal axes, meaning she had like bare bottom, like hardly noticeable or hardly detectable progesterone levels, very low estradiol levels. She had a lot of symptomology, so gut issues. She had chronic, GI issues. She had very poor biofeedback, always feeling fatigued, lethargic, so much downregulation from a metabolic and a physiological perspective because she was constantly calorie restricting herself. She was eating. And this is this is a fitness professional. Keep in mind, she is very accurate. She sent me logs upon logs. She was eating under 1,200 calories a day. She was doing high intensity boot camp classes 3 to 5 times a week. She was training 5 to 6 days a week in the gym and doing excessive amounts of cardio. So, I really had to flip the paradigm on her, and she had a great physique. So one of her biggest fears was giving that up. But I want to give you guys this background in the story because she is the person that everyone sends me a photo of and says, I want to be like her. Well, over the past at least year and a half, so the first few months we went through a primer phase. We just worked on improving her physiology, improving her health markers. And Ruby and I had done a podcast. I mean, at this point, Ruby, it's got to be like 2 years ago, I believe, that we did a primer phase podcast. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that, that is one reference point that you guys can listen to, kind of like my process, although it's evolved over the years. But actually, when we recorded that,
at the start of the year, I reposted the podcast.
Perfect. So we can even link that below for you guys to check out. And now keep in mind, this is over 2 years ago that we recorded that. So some of my approaches, my methods, they've evolved over time. But I just give you this little bit of a background because I linked up with Nikki around that same time period. So I put her through a primer phase, tried to, improve her internal physiology, got her back up to maintenance. And since that point, I've built up her calories to over 2,000. Now, this was not a night and day difference. I'm not saying that she went from 1,200 to 2,000, but in that time, she's gained about 6 pounds of lean body mass. We've done DEXA scans. We've done blood work every 3 months. And her hormones, her thyroid production is back online, like in a very good place. All her metabolic markers are in an optimal place. And she actually, if we look at the photos now, the photos that everyone used to see of her on Instagram were photo shoot photos. So when they used to see her previously, they didn't see her when she was having GI issues or when she was bloated and when she was dealing with constipation and all these issues from being physiologically downregulated from trying to stay too lean too long. So the photos that I have, and she actually shared these just this past week. So I would love to, Ruby, if you want, I can send you the link to her actual Instagram post. So you can post this for the audience. But she showed a before and after from the week that we started to her most recent update. She is eating more calories than she ever has in her adult life. This woman's approximately 30 years old. And she looks better than ever, has better body composition, better strength. She even listed in the caption of the Instagram post how much her lifts have went up just within this last 6-month building phase. And now so many women send me her as their image. What they don't realize is that Nikki has not dieted. We have went through a 4-week in totality, 4 weeks of dieting in the last 20 months that we've been working together. And the only reason that was was because she was getting engaged. So keep in mind that there is a long-term investment that it takes to get the physique that you want. And oftentimes women will come to me and say, I want to look like so-and-so, and they'll send me an image. And here's the thing. I don't want anyone comparing themselves to someone else, especially a fitness professional, because you don't know the Photoshop that goes behind that. You don't know the drug use that has gone behind that. You don't know that that person most likely has been training hard and intensely for 10 plus years. Whereas you're comparing your chapter 1 to their chapter 20. However, you have to keep in mind, and this is a commonality that I find with so many women that come to me for physique coaching, is that most often the physique that you want has more muscle than you have currently, and you're not going to calorie deficit and diet your way to a more muscular, more toned, shapely physique. If you want glutes, don't think that you're going to calorie deficit your way to bigger glutes, because that's not going to happen. If we actually think about it from like an actual anatomical perspective, like glutes are an area, first and foremost, it's a big muscle. So it's energetically demanding to train that muscle group first and foremost. Second of all, it actually is going to take, sufficient calorie intake to fuel that type of hard training for a large muscle group. And also, that is an area that requires fat. So if you actually look at any women that are natural and that don't have breast implants, when they diet, their breasts get smaller, their glutes get smaller. So if you think that you're actually going to increase your glute size and improve your body composition and build this like round, shapely, really nice aesthetic physique by dieting your way there, it's a fallacy that the fitness industry has sold you. And it's an unfortunate thing. And I really try to speak out about this. I really try to empower others with education, especially women, to fuel themselves properly, because it is something we've been sold like dieting is a solution for everything. And it's not, especially when you want long-term body composition improvement and change.
I'm going to come back to the genetics of the abs and glutes, because that's something that I want to do a post on as well. And I would really love to collaborate with you on a post on that one. I will reach out to you about collaborating on a post of that. But something you said there, it reminds me of my coach when he said to me, I used to compare myself all the time in the past. So I want people to know that it does take a process. Like, I'm in a place now where most of my rooms don't even have mirrors. I'm in a place now where I don't even give a shit about mirrors. I hardly, if ever, body check. Whereas I was someone that was always body checking, always pinching my stomach, always keeping myself into this dichotomy or this belief that I haven't earned eating more phase. I haven't earned this place where I can just eat more carbs and get myself out of these lower calories, because I still have body fat to lose. I'm already struggling to lose weight as it is, which is as I saw it, but I actually was not overly fat. It's just how I saw myself. We do not see ourselves as we are. That's something that I want you to bring up if you can remember that point. But my coach said to me after me sending him all these images, Ruby, you realize that she's 10 kilos fucking heavier than you. He said it literally like that. I remember his words. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I want that. He's like, well, you're going to have to eat more and get your carbs up to where I told you to put them. Because I was on 160 carbs. He's like, you need to eat 350. I'm like, what? So I'm like, I'll eat 250. It's okay. I'll eat 250. That's still more than I was eating before. Like, I was so scared to put them up. But the thing is, now I'm on, and then I think the highest I went up to was like 400 grams of carbs. But it's like, that's what my body needed. And my body responded in such a positive way. But if I only held myself to the scale, he used to tell me every single check-in, stop focusing on dumb shit. That was literally my response. That was all he said to me every check-in, stop focusing on dumb shit. And it got me, because he would never reply to any of my complaints, any of my concerns, unless it was training related. And I think that's what really helped me flip the switch after a couple of months, because it's just like, okay, I need to focus on this stuff because this is all I get attention for. And I started to realize my body was changing in a positive way. Like, more carbs, my body was actually getting harder. I didn't look as watery. And I think this is kind of where I want to go with this conversation, in that the thing is, clients come to us, like you said, they feel like fat loss and weight loss is the solution to everything because that's what we're sold. So many people can do that on their own, albeit being a lot of the time the wrong way. But how you get from A to B really matters for the rest of your journey. It's the rest of it that I believe a coach is the most beneficial for, outside of the fat loss phase, even though, yeah, a coach is really beneficial for that. But I feel like we are way more beneficial outside of that, because, as I said, we don't see ourselves as we are. And there's like this whole teach them how to lose weight and then let them off. But we're not teaching you how to be a weight loss transformation success. We're teaching you how to live a longer, more fulfilling life, how to build the physique, which is more than a fat loss phase. A fat loss phase is the tiniest part of it if you do it right. But so many people don't, that it becomes their life. And it's why they live in this place where they're fearful of doing anything else. If you listen to the podcast back with Ben Macefield, it's like the proactive health and longevity, teaching a better way of life. It's this stuff that you need to thrive. Sometimes the hard conversations and a coach challenging you on what you think you need to do is the best place to sit yourself and to really think, do you want to be skinny or do you want to be lean? Because you can diet all you want, but that dieting isn't going to give you that hard definition that you want. It's not going to give you the confidence that you want. It's not going to make you feel good in your clothes. Like, yeah, okay, you might quote unquote fit in them, but the thing is, that is also a mental aspect, because you can feel completely different in your clothes the next day simply because of how you feel inside of yourself. So I feel like I want to hand this over to you with the preamble of, you don't see yourselves as you are. In these periods of time, clothes are extremely unreliable, even though we're sold as them being such a reliable metric of progress, and how dieting for every occasion can hold you back, and not staying in a building phase long enough, because I feel like they're all intertwined. Because do you want to be skinny or do you want to be lean?
All right. So when it comes to your ability to be objective, now I want to give a little bit of a caveat here. I coach many fitness professionals. That includes coaches, nutritionists, dietitians, gym owners, personal trainers, as well as those lifestyle clients in the general population. And not one single one of them are objective with themselves enough to be able to coach themselves. And that's why they seek out my guidance, because a lot of times, and I'll say this about myself, I'll give you guys a little bit of an insight how I coach myself. Oftentimes I actually will take a check-in on a weekend and I have it automatically sent to myself with my head cut off midweek, so that it comes into my inbox just like I'm any other client of myself. I don't want to get that emotional attachment, and many people are unable. We are our worst critics. If you are a type A individual, if you are a high performer, a high achiever, if you're someone that's been really successful in life, you are overly critical of yourself, and it's a double-edged sword essentially. So it's something that can build you. It can make you extremely successful. It could cause you to push yourself, but it could also break you, especially from a mental perspective, where you're always breaking yourself down and tearing yourself down and being hypercritical of you. And that's where I found it be really beneficial, where I step in as a coach and I say, objectively, this is what we're working towards. This is how you actually look. And you have to stop holding on to this, under muscled small version of yourself because you're attached to the scale weight. Let's divorce ourselves from that attachment to the scale weight and really focus on body composition. Your physique, and this is for all individuals, but especially women, your physique is built in the building phase. Your progress later on will be revealed in a fat loss phase, but without building the foundation to your actual physique, you won't have the shape, the muscle, the definition, or any of those aspects that you see. And what often ends up happening is many people end up dieting in a manner. First of all, they go about diets in a insufficient or suboptimal manner. So they become a smaller, skinnier, scrawnier version of themselves rather than a fitter, leaner, stronger version of themselves. And so a lot of times people are so focused on weight loss rather than on actual fat loss and muscle maintenance. And so when we look at like how people approach different phases within their nutritional periodization and even their training periodization, they focus so heavily on weight loss rather than what's actually going to give the biggest bang and the biggest return on investment, which is investing enough time into your actual building phases. And then when we do get into the fat loss phase, you need to focus on muscle retention rather than on purely losing scale weight.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not even just the scale weight, like it's the clothes. We get so subjective to them. And if we try to keep ourselves trapped in how we feel in our clothes when we're trying to build, I feel like that's going to keep us wanting to diet for every occasion as well. And I guess this is where it comes to, I want to build this physique, I want to build muscle, blah, blah, blah. I want to do this the right way. But also, if they come to us on, let's say, 1600 to 1800 calories, which might seem a lot to a lot of people, but it's just like, if you're struggling to stick to that calorie allotment, if you're struggling to thrive on that, how do you expect us to do a successful dieting phase if you haven't spent enough time away from thinking about fat loss? And this is a great one, mentally dieting. A lot of people, even though they haven't physically been in a fat loss phase, they've spent that period of time wanting to chase leaner, wanting to get rid of the belly fat. And that tends to lead to people over snacking, sabotaging themselves, and not fully immersing themselves into a building process, which is where the confidence is built. Because you're never going to appreciate the body that you've built if all you've done is mentally diet, mentally hate on your body. I'm going to throw that one over to you before I continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that one of the biggest things, one of the biggest issues or bottlenecks that I see is that a lot of individuals, especially women, they have a goal physique in mind, but they have yet to commit themselves to the process that's required to actually achieve that physique. So a lot of times, I'll just tell you from my own personal experience, the vast majority of the women that come to me for coaching, they have the goal of drastically improving their body composition. But often, and this is kind of something that we hit on previously, but oftentimes they think that the way that they're going to get the body of their dreams or the body they desire is just simply to focus on fat loss. And what they really need to do is realize that they need to build a substantial foundation of muscle first to achieve the goal physique that they desire. And this is why, like, I take a much different approach. I'll be completely frank with everyone out there. The first thing I do with a client, even if their goal is fat loss, is not to put them in a fat loss phase. Often we need to build a foundation first and foremost. And the vast majority of the time, I'm going to include a dedicated period of gaining muscle and a building phase or a primer phase or one phase that's going to set the foundation to their physique as we approach their physique goals. And don't get me wrong, like, there are a lot of benefits of losing fat. Ruby and I would not deny that. However, a lot of women have these specific goals and they also have this terminology. And I hate this term, to be honest with you, but a lot of women come to me and they complain about feeling skinny fat, which is a term I truly don't like, but it's the most commonly one used. But essentially what they mean is they're over fat yet under muscled. However, the biggest issue and the biggest bottleneck in most women's physiques is that they're under muscled. They don't have sufficient muscle mass, yet they just want to diet their way into what they think is going to be a better physique. So if you're someone who's looking to build a lean, toned, and tight physique, dedicating time towards building muscle is going to be the biggest and most influential factor to changing your overall body composition in a positive manner, as gaining muscle improves the overall shape of your physique and can not only allow you to look leaner at the same body weight as you are right now. So you could stay at the exact same body fat level, but if you were to increase your lean mass, actually, technically, if you were to increase your lean mass at the same body fat level you are now, you would actually decrease body fat. So you'd lose body fat, but you can even get to a heavier body weight technically on the scale. I don't want you guys to focus on this, but you can get to a heavier body weight, but by having added muscle, you will look leaner currently. And then also it'll make getting leaner in the future much easier. And, this is not to say that you should never diet for fat loss, but here's what I really try to express and really try to encourage my clients to think about. I want them to think long-term. And I always remind them, we can diet at any point to get lean after we complete a productive building phase. But if you just diet to get lean without any focus on building muscle, you're not going to diet your way to gaining a significant amount of muscle, nor are you going to attain the toned and tight physique you desire. And far too many women focus far too heavily on fat loss, especially those in the general population. And this causes them to keep jumping from dieting cycle to dieting cycle, where they just become a skinnier, smaller version of themselves and lose muscle in every attempt at losing fat they make, which increases their likelihood. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. They think about, oh, well, you know what? I'm just continually trying to go after this fat loss phase and it's not working. I keep regaining. What they don't realize is so many of you out there go from diet to diet and you lose an excessive amount of lean mass during your diets. And then after, you're experiencing the body fat overshooting effect. So you're actually increasing fat mass over time and you're losing metabolically active muscle tissue. So that's going to decrease your total daily energy expenditure. That's going to decrease your metabolic rate. That's going to downregulate your hormone profile. So this is why I think it's really important, especially for women out there, to realize the benefits of committing to a building phase and to spend time towards, dedicated towards building muscle. And so that you can actually get all the or get all the benefits of doing so. Because if you go into a building phase, you're going to be able to improve your body composition. You're going to increase the amount of calories your body burns per day, both at rest and then during exercise, especially because a lot of people don't think about this, but like when you're insufficiently fueled, when you're under fueling yourself, your work capacity is going down, your strength is going down, you're not improving in the gym. However, when you reverse that process and you go into a building phase and you finally sufficiently fuel yourself and you adequately fuel yourself for the work that you're doing, you're going to be able to increase your reps and your load. And when we actually look at calorie expenditure from a weight training perspective, that is a function of how heavy you lift. And so if you're in a building phase and you're getting stronger and you're able to, perform your current training loads for more reps or lift heavier reps or heavier loads in general, you're going to be able to expend more calories per day during those sessions. And within that, by increasing the amount of calories that you're on, so say that you're stuck on this dieting cycle where you're eating 1,200 to 1,400 calories. If you finally give yourself the leeway to increase that and strategically get yourself to maintenance or beyond, you're going to increase your metabolism. You're going to improve your hormone profile. And you're finally going to be in an adequate state of energy availability where you feel and function much better. So when it comes to achieving your physique goals and attaining a lean muscular physique, you really need to get yourself out of the I need to diet mindset and out of a mindset of restriction and subtraction and into a mindset of abundance and addition. So you can build a solid foundation of muscle mass, which will put you in a better position to lose fat in the future, which is why I always tell my female clients that they need to stop dieting in order to build muscle and to actually build a physique that they want. Because if your goal is a lean muscular physique, let's build that muscular foundation first.
Oh my God, there's so much I need to say right now. Like so much. You touched on so much that just went ding, ding, ding. One of the things you said, which is what I brought up on a prior podcast with you, because I thought it was this important, is you burn more in the gym if you focus on building up your training capacity first. And this does come down to you need to build that solid foundation so that you can keep increasing load, you can keep progressing without bottlenecking, injuring, or plateauing yourself. Like build up that strong foundation in the gym, then add the load, build up the training capacity, because we don't train to burn calories, but it burns a ton of calories. It's like, it's not meant to be the focus, but it will be an outcome. And like I said before, from when I was doing Romanian deadlifts for 40 kilos for like 10 to 12 reps, now I'm doing freaking 100, kilos, not pounds, but just times it by 2.2. But now I'm doing like 110, 120 kilos for 6 to 8 reps. But then there's all the other work that comes in, like the leg press, the other things that I'm doing at a higher capacity. And the thing is, your body also becomes a lot more efficient at that stuff. So then you can add that load without it being so much of a fatigue and more of a stimulus. So that aside. And then you said getting leaner in the future would be much easier. And that's the thing, the 12 to 1400 calories. However, I was someone that was training like 6 days a week and trying to do even more and trying to cut my carbs. And most of what I ate was freaking like rabbit food because I was hungry and trying to stay within my calories. But what I did was overdo myself, over exercise, but under train. And I was struggling to see results on 1600 calories, on 160 grams of carbs. I just felt fat. I hated my stomach. And no matter what I did, and I had to compete in a weight sport because I was powerlifting back then, it was the biggest struggle for me to get into my weight class, to the point where I had to cut, I don't know, pounds, probably like 10 pounds. I had to cut 8 to 10 pounds in a matter of a couple of days to be able to weigh in for comp. It was a struggle. And it's funny because now I'm effortlessly sitting around the same body weight, plus 1 kilo, plus 2 kilos, at such a leaner physique. Like I was puffy. And if I compare the photos, I was more puffy back then. I looked like I had more body fat, whereas now I'm leaner at 2 kilos / 4 pounds, and also 4 years on, because I only dieted for 6 weeks within that whole phase. I did a 3-week mini cut, and then I did a 6-week diet. That's all I did in the last 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. And the funny thing is that I dieted on 2,100 calories, 2,100, not 1,600, not 1,400.
But explain to the audience, why is that? Because you took the time and you stayed out of a dieted state and you built muscle. A lot of women are only looking at the short-term benefits of dieting to look better for a temporary period of time. And the most unfortunate aspect about that is that often, because they don't have the foundation of muscle and the foundational habits and behaviors built to maintain that fat loss after, not only do they lose lean body mass during that fat loss phase, but they're also they're not able to actually keep that weight loss off after. So a lot of times, I think a lot of women overlook so many of the benefits of building muscle, and they don't realize there are so many multi-pronged benefits that we can get into, all the benefits that many of you women out there are overlooking by not building muscle.
And that's exactly what we're going to do soon. And there's a point that you said there as well, but I'm at the same weight now that I was back then, like I said, plus 1 kilo. But you're missing the fact that you just said, why was it? Because I built muscle. What are people afraid of? Clothes feeling tight, the scale going up. Guys, I went up, I can't do math in my head, I think it's like 10 pounds, 10, 11, 12 pounds was the heaviest. Like that much more was the end of my building phase. And that was over 4 years, guys. And the funny thing is that my coach didn't even realize that I lost weight that fast on the diet that he put me on, because he cut my calories to 2100 and I lost like 4 kilos within 5 weeks. And he was still expecting me to take that whole 6 week period. He was even expecting it to take 7, 8 weeks. Yet it just came off like that because I didn't diet for ages and I built up the habits and I wasn't sabotaging myself with food. I was able to fuel my performance. My performance was through the roof. Like, I was training like a beast. I had the fuel for it. Most people don't have that because they expect to diet when they come to us on 1700, 1800 calories. And the last thing that you said that I want to bring into this is we can diet at any time to get lean. That kind of touches onto that. I didn't believe that. It's like, no, I need to get it off now. There's this time fallacy, this conception of time. And I want to look like X. Okay, but what's that person doing? How are they training? Because you're not going to look like X without the habits, without the mindset. And you're never going to appreciate getting to X if you haven't worked on that mindset first. So now I'm going to throw over those questions to you. What does it take to build the lean physique that you want? And what are the benefits of this muscle building phase? And why is it so important to focus on it?
All right. So if we look at what it actually takes to build muscle tissue, this is an energetically costly process. So like we spoke about, our first part of this podcast has not been released, but I assume that it will be released before this one, correct, Ruby?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. So we went through all the training related aspects of what it takes to build muscle. So on this podcast, we're really going to be talking about more of like the nutrition, lifestyle related stuff, like really what does it take? And the first thing that it's going to take is for you to stop dieting, to be honest with you guys. And I'll go through some of the physiology as to why that is. So I always tell my clients this, and this is something that I put very simply, but I'm going to put it and I'm going to make it blunt because a lot of women don't realize this, but you're not going to diet your way to a more muscular physique. And although we have a lot of research out there about body recomposition, there is an ability to gain a bit of muscle in a slight deficit, like during a body recomposition phase. You will not maximize your rate of muscle growth in a deficit. So in order to increase your rate of muscle growth and actually build muscle, you want to be eating at least at maintenance calories for a prolonged period of time. But if you're someone who has the goal of building a substantial amount of muscle, you're better off eating above maintenance or in a slight surplus. And this is because building muscle is an energy intensive and costly process. So you need to focus on adequately fueling yourself to be able to effectively and efficiently build muscle and improve your physique. So in order to build muscle, you need to combine hard progressive training, which is what we discussed in last week's podcast, with sufficient protein intake and sufficient energy availability to put yourself in a position where muscle growth can occur. And then when we look at it, like there is a level of hierarchy of importance that I go through. So the first thing I start with is the person's state of energy balance. So from a nutritional perspective, you want to stay out of a deficit during a muscle building phase due to how calorie deficits impact your rates of muscle protein synthesis. And it's really important to be aware of this factor because in order to build muscle, we need to be in a state of positive protein balance over time, meaning our rates of muscle protein synthesis need to exceed and be greater and higher than our rates of muscle protein breakdown. Now, the reason why I always say that you cannot maximize muscle growth in a calorie deficit is because inherently, just naturally, being in a calorie deficit decreases our rates of muscle protein synthesis. So in the research we have, we see anywhere between approximately 19 to 27% of a decrease in muscle protein synthesis rates during calorie deficits. So that's going to limit how much, muscle you can grow. And also, these aren't an aggressive calorie deficit. So all you women that are slashing your calories out there, you are going to be significantly hindering your muscle growth. So if your goal is to maximize your ability to gain muscle, you want to stay out of a deficit so you can maximize muscle protein synthesis levels and build muscle at a maximum rate that you're able to. And we have to keep in mind that muscle growth, I always try to give this caveat because a lot of women will then tell me, oh, I don't want to get too bulky. Believe me, you're not going to. Muscle growth is an extremely slow process. And if you are someone that you're constantly in a deficit, you're only making this process slower and less effective and limiting your overall progress. Now, Ruby, this is something you had asked me like offline about. You had sent me a DM and it was essentially about around the fact of like, we can build muscle either at maintenance or in a surplus. So if you want, we can go into that or we can go into another topic. You let me know.
I feel like that's actually an important thing that you brought up because a lot of people, you mentioned it, I don't want to get bulky. we've already touched on this in the last episode, where if you're getting bulky, it's because you're taking the wrong freaking approach, which is what so many coaches out there do. They promote this like mini bulk or just increase your calories, but you can't just increase your calories without keeping tabs on how your body is progressing. Number one, in the gym, because that's really fucking important. Number two, you don't just go from a deficit into a surplus phase. You go into maintenance, you push your training there, you get everything back up to baseline, and then you go into a surplus. This is what I want you to talk on with the maintenance, and then talk about the benefits of a slight surplus and why it's important to get to that phase, with the biggest caveat in that you guys need to be damn patient and give this months and even a couple of years. Be damn patient. Like, you need to give the time to a maintenance and then the time into a build to get the result that you want. It is the biggest thing holding you back, and trying to just cut that down, because Brandon, bring this back up again with the whole, you don't see yourself as you are, I feel bulky. No, it's just that you are so used to feeling like a little scrawny kid. Sorry, that's just the best way to describe it. You're so used to feeling like that, which is how I was so used to feeling. Even though I didn't feel scrawny, I still felt very watery and puffy back then. But it's like I was so used to doing those actions that anything other than that was foreign. But let's talk about the importance of why it is so important to build that baseline, to get familiar with that, to push the training, and then the benefits of the surplus.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I focus on with clients, especially the women that I work with that want to build muscle, is first I need to get them out of a deficit. So I'm getting them out of that mindset, that restriction mindset. I'm getting them out of that dieting cycle, and I'm getting them back to maintenance. And really the reason I do that is it's going to help with the physiological processes of building muscle. But I also want to ease them into the process, because a lot of times, like you just mentioned, first of all, it's not a great method to go from a significant deficit all the way into a large surplus. That would be suboptimal from an actual physique development standpoint. But also, we have to think about the psychology of this. If someone has been so used to underfueling themselves, the likelihood that you're going to get buy-in as a coach, and I'll tell you this personally because I've been coaching a long time and I have made these mistakes, and I know that they just don't stay on plan. They go back to cutting out their food and things of that sort. So my first goal with women who want to build muscle is I get them to maintenance, and then I show them the benefits of doing so, the increase in energy, the better biofeedback, the improvements in training performance, how their muscles actually have some fullness. They don't look flat, scrawny, and stringy. And then I try to transition them into a slight surplus, because I want to put them in the best position to maximize muscle gain, yet to minimize fat gain, because I do know that a lot of people don't want to do that. And sometimes we end up going from two ends of the extreme. So we go from over restricting ourselves to like eating like it's a seafood diet, and then you're overeating. And that's why women say, I got bulky the last, building phase I did. Yeah, because you overate and you didn't go about it in an optimal approach. So for those out there who have yet to go through a building phase, I want to express the fact that the lean building phase approach that I take with my female clients is not a period of force feeding where I'm aiming to see the scale weight go up as quickly as possible, but it's more so a calculated period of increasing energy availability to get the benefits of getting out of a deficit for a prolonged period of time. So, Ruby, you asked me about some of the benefits of doing so. And really, when it comes down to it, there's benefits that can be achieved by going back to maintenance, but especially from going into a little bit of a surplus. So we're talking about a slight surplus. And this is multifactorial. So this is going to maximize your muscle gain potential, but it's also going to give you a whole pronged benefit. So I'll tell you some of the things that I've seen, and then also the literature reinforces in terms of the benefits of increasing your calorie intake. So the first benefit, just from a physiological perspective, is increasing your calorie intake and your energy availability is going to help you to properly fuel yourself and provide you with increased energy for training. So by getting out of a deficit, you'll be feeling better due to being better fueled for your session. So you'll be able to push your training harder and put yourself in a better position, in the best position to gain muscle, as gaining muscle is a challenging process and requires you to achieve progressive overload over time. Another benefit of that, of increasing calories, is I have a lot of women, I'll tell you personally, like that come to me and they contact me and they want to bring up very specific muscle groups that they have yet to be able to bring up. And oftentimes it's their glutes. And what you ladies need to realize is that your booty isn't going to build itself, especially in a deficit. So if you want to gain a substantial amount of muscle, you need to fuel for the work required. That's always a statement I give my women that I work with. We want to fuel for the muscle gain that you want. We want to fuel those training sessions. And so one approach that I found to be really effective is to pair a building phase from a nutritional perspective with a specialization cycle approach, which is on the training perspective. So I utilize a periodized approach to both. And so I'll design a block of training to provide a greater stimulus to one or two muscle groups that are lagging in development or that client just really wants to bring up. And for many women, this is their glutes and delts that they want to bring up. So when you're in a building phase and you're fueling yourself properly, you can train more intensely and also recover better from more intense training, which allows me as a coach to program in a manner where I'm able to place a greater emphasis and increase the stimulus on muscle groups you're looking to build. Another benefit is sufficiently fueling yourself will improve your energy for training, your training performance, and how hard you can push yourself in the gym, but it will also enhance your recovery capacity. So a lot of people, they're very driven on the stimulus side. So they're always thinking about what can I do in the gym, but they never think about the recovery side. And that's why a lot of people don't have great physiques. You see them in the gym constantly. They're in there hours a day, but they look the same year in and year out. And that's because they think about the muscle growth process or the physique building process as what they do in the gym 1 to 2 hours a day, and not considering the 22 to 23 other hours of the day. And so we really have to dial in our recovery. There's this stimulus recovery adaptation curve, but also this balance that we need to strike. And so recovery is needed to recuperate from our training so that we can adapt it and grow from that training. And so we can also, lower the amount of time that it takes to recover and get back to an enhanced state of performance so that we can continue, pushing our training in a progressive fashion. So what I really want to get across to people is nutrition is one of the most effective, besides sleep, one of the most effective inputs that we can use to maximize our recovery, because if your recovery isn't maximized, it can impair your ability to adapt and respond to your training. It can hinder your physique development and your training performance, and it can cause fatigue to accumulate quicker. So basically, you'll be putting in the same amount of work or even more, but you're not getting the same rewards due to a lack of recovery. And one of the most effective bottlenecks or levers that we can pull to improve our recovery is proper nutrition and sufficient fueling. Then eating at maintenance or above will also improve your biofeedback. So you're going to get better quality sleep. You're going to feel more satiated, which will help you stick to your diet and deal with less hunger issues, which is often like one of the biggest biofeedback bottlenecks that I see with women that come to me is they want to keep dieting, but they're dealing with excessive hunger. That is not a sustainable approach. If your internal systems are downregulated, especially from like a hormonal perspective where your leptin levels are low, your ghrelin levels are high, and you're dealing with excessive hunger all the time where every weekend you slip off, if you think you're going to be able to continue dieting your way to a better physique, that's not going to happen. So we really want to improve your biofeedback through the increase in calories and going back to maintenance or even in above. And also we're going to see many benefits from like your daily energy levels. Also, this is something that you and I kind of hit on previously, but what you need to realize, a lot of people think of going into a building phase or eating more as a step back, but it's actually going to be like a springboard. So it's almost like pulling the launch pad back to spring you forward. So properly fueling yourself during a building phase can also make your next mini cut like you did, Ruby, or your next fat loss phase far easier, because at the peak of a building phase, most are so full and they're so well fueled that they don't have appetite. They don't have like appetite issues and they don't have a desire to eat that much. So the first few weeks of your next fat loss phase is going to be much easier because you're going to be happy to eat less, and you're going to have so much energy still from being in a well-fed state for so long that you're going to be firing on all cylinders, and your body is going to be far more responsive to the deficit, which makes for quicker, more efficient fat loss. And then the last, aspect that I like to hit on, because this is more of what I've seen in practice. And I always say that we cannot separate psychology from physiology. And I personally find that transitioning a client away from focusing purely on weight loss and into focusing on building muscle helps to shift them out of a mindset of restriction and subtraction to a mindset of abundance and addition. So when we think about it just from like a logical perspective, if you're in a slight surplus, or even if you're at maintenance, that means more food than you're used to eating, which I find helps my clients to better adhere to their diet because they're not dealing with issues related to increased hunger or appetite issues from dieting all the time. And it can also improve their relationship with food, which is something that many struggle with, especially women, because it's something that they generally won't improve if they continue to diet. So you guys are not going to improve your relationship with food, your ability to auto-regulate your intake, if you're constantly in a state of calorie restriction, because you're not only calorie restricted in a physical sense, but you're also mentally restricted. So for those of you who want to gain muscle, but who fear eating above maintenance, I think it's really important to realize that during this process, food is fuel and calories are energy. So in order to maximize your ability to gain muscle, you should be eating at least at maintenance, if not in a slight surplus. And this is going to help you maximize muscle protein synthesis and minimize protein breakdown. It's going to provide you with enough energy to fuel the hard progressive training that's needed to build the muscle that you're looking to gain. It's going to optimize your recovery and replenishment of substrates that you've utilized in training. And you're going to have enough calories, both from a macro and micronutrient perspective, to perform all the processes our body goes through on a daily basis. And it's going to help maintain adequate hormone levels. So there are so many multifactorial benefits to eating a sufficient amount of calories and truly fueling yourself, both from a body composition perspective, a training performance perspective, but then also from like a psychology and mental perspective, that many of you don't know how good you could feel because you have yet to allow yourself to function on like all cylinders.
I'm a testament to that. I honestly thought that I felt pretty damn good, but I did not realize just how free I feel. Like, I feel free. It's funny. Maybe it's the ADHD as well, because it's like I still have like rules on certain things with my food, because you can have flexibility, but you need to have restraints around that flexibility. And for me, I know myself, and it's important to know yourself. Like, I know, as an example, the sweetest food that I'll eat is fruit. It's the only quote unquote sweet food that I eat, because otherwise my dopamine signals, I could be extremely stuffed, like I ate a whole buffet, but if I eat anything that's like sweet, of a sweeter texture, it's like I'm just starting the meal over again. So I know myself in that sense.
So that's actually a phenomenon that's indicated by palatability, but there's also something called sensory specific satiety, which indicates that we get filled on a certain flavor. So the best, and that's also what happens with the buffet effect, where you have so many different varieties of flavors where you can just continue eating past your normal satiety levels. And what a lot of people don't realize is we always have, like in the States, we always say that we have a second stomach. And what that means is you could have a very savory meal. So say you go out to a restaurant and you have a nice cut of steak and a baked potato. These are savory, salty items. You could be up to your fill with that. And they could tell you, you could be like, I've been there, where you're at a Redigio where they keep bringing out the meats and you could be filled on those items. But as soon as they bring something sweet out, it resets your palate. And really what that ends up doing is it actually causes you to eat past your normal satiety mechanisms. And that's really what a lot of processed foods, a lot of hyperpalatable foods do, because actually in the engineering of those products, they mix a bunch of different flavors, which cause you to eat past your satiety levels. So they've actually seen just the act of increasing food variety or flavor variety within meals increases ad libitum, or, to satiation intake, by about 40 to 50%. So it's a drastic increase. And we see this in buffet studies. We also see this, like there was a study by Barbara Rolls back in the 90s where they did sandwiches, and they let people in the same condition. They went through multiple conditions in different weeks, and it was just a sandwich eating lunch, where they would present them either with the same sandwich or with 4 different types of sandwiches. When they were presented with 4 different types of sandwiches that they could eat to fullness, and they were told, do not eat past fullness, just eat to your normal satiety level. These individuals ate 33% more calories when they were given the option of 4 different sandwiches as compared to just getting one. Although in both conditions, they rated them to be the same in terms of palatability or pleasantness. So it just shows you how you can eat past, like there are little things that you could do to actually decrease appetite by just sticking with more of the same flavor. But also we can literally jack up our satiety and our appetite mechanisms by just including a little bit more variety. And I think that's one mistake that people get with the If It Fits Your Macros, where they start with these macro Tetris stuff. They do this in the off season where they're trying to make all these inventive meals and all these like highly complex recipes, and they end up eating far greater than the surplus that they should be in. So then they're in a really large surplus and they gain fat at an expedited rate. And you can't build muscle out of nothing, but you're also not going to force feed your way to more muscle growth. You're actually going to cause yourself to gain more fat than you are muscle. You're going to gain the same amount of muscle mass, but there's a rate limit to how much muscle you can gain at one period of time, but there is no rate in the amount of fat that you can gain.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I say that on literally every podcast that talks about you can't force train muscle on, you can't force feed muscle on, but that is actually going to be something I quickly touch on at the end as well. But as soon as we focus on, I want to build muscle, it can feel like we're putting so much time and effort into it because it's in focus. But do your actions align? And this is a part that is most crucial. How is your honest mindset and focus? Or is it still on dieting? Is it still on the next event? Is it still on how you're going to look in that dress? How your clothes feel? Because you're not going to get the best results out of that building phase if your mindset isn't actually in it. You're physically doing the reps, but you're not mentally in it. So you're not going to gain the real benefits of building that physique because you're going to hold yourself back. You're going to sabotage. And like I said before, this is why a coach is the most important to challenge you in this, because we will always self-sabotage. You just need to be open-minded and willing to listen to what they're saying instead of being so stubborn against the same thing, and do the mindset work. Get a therapist if you need to, because you do not see yourself as you are. Like, get a freaking therapist to work through this stuff. It will help you so much. And like Brandon said, food choices are so important in maintaining a leaner physique, but at the same time in building to a point where you're not going into that much of a surplus, because you really don't need more than 5% of a surplus. And you can easily, hunger is unreliable for the reasons Brandon said, which is why I always hate that whole intuitive eating thing, because it's like, hunger isn't reliable. What have you been doing the whole day? Have you been running around the whole day? Did you just eat 3 different pellets of food? Do you have so much food variety around you? Because you said nutrition is so important as well, are you hoarding your food for nighttime, or are you prioritizing your food around your training? And back into this, how clothes are not a great measure of progress. I want you to kind of sum up with that, but also the genetics of abs and glutes need to be brought into here as well, because some people store a lot more body fat on their glutes, so their glutes are going to respond a lot more to a surplus. You need to stop comparing yourself. And the same with abs as well, in that, yeah, you need to train on those abs, but the body fat distribution is highly genetic, and holding yourself to a certain ideal you think is going to happen during a building phase will hold you back as well. I threw so much at you. So maybe the clothes, the beliefs around food can also alter your hormones. We know the milkshake study. And I guess the bow on this will be settle in, because you're not going to see a change after 12 weeks, and you can't say nothing's happening and then go change programs again. Like, this shit takes time. And trying to diet for every single occasion and look good in that dress, how clothes are a bad measure, is going to hold you back. And that will pretty much sum up the podcast.
Okay, so you definitely threw me a lot. So I'm going to try to juggle like 6 or 7 balls at the same time. I'm going to try to hit a different thing. So first and foremost, I don't believe that clothing should be the biggest indicator of your actual progress. We should look at training performance. We should look to really triangulate different things. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're eating a sufficient amount of calories. And it doesn't have to be this massive surplus. Really, to maximize muscle gain, you can do it in a very slight surplus, because so let me explain this. Yes, muscle is an energetically expensive process, but actually, if you look at the amount of calories that it takes to build a pound of lean mass, it's actually less than most realize. So if you actually look at and I encourage someone to do this, to actually look at the research on this. It's by Slater et al. 2019. He has a breakdown of this, and a pound of lean mass, if I'm not incorrect, I'm almost sure it's the net metabolizable energy content is around 825 calories. So if you have your training dialed in, you're eating sufficient protein, and you're even in just a slight surplus, you can maximize muscle gain as compared to if you do what most do, which is to undereat and stay in a deficit, which limits their lean mass gains, or they do the opposite, which is to eat too large of a surplus and gain excess fat. You want to really strike a balance. And I know that moderation is a road that is not sexy, but it is the road that's going to give you the best gains. So that would be the first thing. Second thing is you want to make sure that you're aiming for a realistic rate of gain based on your level of advancement. So what I'll tell you what I do with most of my clients. With most of my clients, I'll target a 1% rate of body weight gain per month during a building phase, which is what I found to be really effective for fueling training, improving performance, and building muscle. So I essentially want to design their nutrition training programs in a manner where performance is continually improving through either rep or load progressions. Their biofeedback is in a good place where they're feeling good, they're functioning well, and their body mass is slowly going up over time as they add muscle. So you shouldn't be looking at your clothing, how they fit, as the number one indicator for progress. You should be looking at your training performance, how you feel, your biofeedback, your strength. This is one place where this is something I often tell my women that I work with is I want you to stop focusing on what your body looks like, and I want you to focus on what your body's capable of. Let's focus on performance, because performance in the gym, your training, is going to be the stimulus that essentially lights the fire for muscle growth. So it is what is going to provide you with the stimulus to actually build the body you want. And if you're so fixated on how your clothes look, it is going to hinder and limit your actual muscle growth progress and potential. And the other thing with clothing is that just so I can explain some of what you may be experiencing or feeling or seeing. First and foremost, you go from a deficit where you've been underfueling yourself, you're glycogen depleted. I want everyone to realize that your end weight at a diet is not your true weight. It is a glycogen depleted, low gut residue, meaning you have very low food volume in your stomach. You have depleted glycogen stores. You're at your lowest body weight. However, you're not actually at a normal body weight. You would have to restore that muscle glycogen, which could be literally kilos upon kilos, that you could just restore from just going back to maintenance. So we have to realize is that your ending body weight during a fat loss phase is not your true weight. You need to replete your glycogen, so you could do that through a refeed. But normally people have between 400 to 500 grams of glycogen that can be stored in muscle and about 80 to 100 grams in their liver. So that is 600 grams, let's just say right there. Now keep in mind that 600 grams of scale weight. That is 1.2 pounds for us Americans. But for every pound, so think about this. If you have 600 grams of glycogen that you've depleted, now we restore that through just going back to maintenance. So we increase carbohydrates, we increase calories, up, and you get back to 600 grams of stored glycogen. But also with that comes 3 to 4 grams of water. So that's another 2,400 grams. Right there is 3 kilograms between the two of them. So you've just gained 6.6 pounds. Just from that, from going back to maintenance and just replenishing your glycogen. So keep in mind that with every gram of carbohydrate that's stored in muscle, it's going to bring 3 to 4 grams of water. So you're going to store that interstitially. So that's going to cause a fuller, rounder muscle. That looks great in the gym. You're getting better pumps. But as soon as your clothes, your blouse fits a little bit more tighter, then you're very hesitant and you want to go right back into a deficit. Don't let that trick you up. A lot of times what you should do is stop relying on your fat loss, apparel or the stuff that you wear in fat loss to dictate the growth that you could have. If you're going to use that as a indicator of progress, you're bottlenecking and you're rate limiting your ability to build your body, because a lot of you don't have enough muscle to begin with. So if you stay in your fat loss, your skinny clothes, you're never going to get that lean, tight, muscular physique you're looking for. So don't use clothing as the indicator. Use your training performance. Look at yourself in the gym. See the pumps and the strength that you can build this physique with. And for any of you out there that want to build glutes, you're not going to diet your way to bigger glutes. So keep that in mind. And so really when it comes down to it, you need to put yourself in the best position to succeed at the goal that you're looking to do. And many of you have the goal of a better body composition. And the number one and most effective way to do so is to resistance train, to build lean body mass, and to really put yourself in a position to succeed and to really be well-fueled and well functioning, so that you're not in this down-regulated state where you always feel like you have to restrict yourself. You have to stay on very low calories. You feel like you can never, eat an off-plan meal, or you can never, increase your calories because you're scared of fat gain, because you've down-regulated all your physiological processes, from your hormones to your metabolism to all other aspects of your biofeedback, where you're living in this restricted state, both mentally and physically, and you're not letting yourself prosper physically.
If your goal is a lean or toned body, to reduce your body fat and look chiseled, fat loss is only half of the equation. And I would actually say it's only a fifth of the equation. 4/5 of it is building the muscle. You can't sculpt a pebble. Too many women never reach their physique goals because they're only focused on fat loss. And that mindset that you just alluded to there is the very thing bottlenecking you. The fact that you do not see yourself as you are is the very thing bottlenecking you. Is there anything that you want to conclude this podcast with? And maybe if there's anything you want to touch up on later on in the future when we reconvene, because I feel like there's always just so much we can talk about in, like you said, many of our clients they want this chiseled, lean, athletic physique at the end, but it's part of maintaining that, fitting that into the food environment that we live in, setting up your physical environment for it, the mindset behind the training, the mindset behind the nutrition, and how you can do the same at any age. The rules are not different for if you're 40 or if you're 50. The recipe of the rules might be, because you're going to need more recovery, but the rules are still the same. You need to focus on building, not cutting down the body that you want, because it's bodybuilding, not body demolishing.
Absolutely. So the last thing that I would say is one of the most beneficial things I've seen in practice with hundreds of women that I've worked with is getting out of a mindset of restriction and subtraction and into a mindset of abundance and addition. And that's both physically and nutritionally through eating a sufficient amount of calories, fueling yourself around your workout, and really giving yourself the proper fuel that you need to prosper and to really function, but also to put yourself in a position where you don't feel like you're going through each day and each month and each year just surviving, but you're actually putting yourself in a position to thrive. Another thing, if anyone wants to get like deeper details into this, I've done like physiological breakdowns of this. I've went through the science of what happens with your metabolism when you go into a deficit and how that could hinder your muscle growth. I've done multiple series on the Chasing Clarity podcast, and I've actually done like a 6 or 7 part series just on building phases. So you guys can go there and really see like a comprehensive breakdown. It's both for males and females, but I also, a lot of times, because I do work with such a large proportion of women, I often will do like different topics where I'll cover just, women's physiology, because you women out there, I think one of the biggest disservices we've done as a fitness industry, and this is something I really do try to talk about. Ruby knows this, and we've had discussions off air. Like I've done full women's series, like podcast series just on female physiology. And you and I, the first series we ever did was a 2-part series just on women's physiology. Why women are not small men. That was what it was titled. And so I'm a really big advocate, not only because I work with women, but also because I encounter so many females that come to me that they've been misled by a lot of the fitness industry narrative, where you need to always be a smaller, lighter individual. You always need to try to be a smaller, lighter version of yourself. And it's also, it's really hindered not only their physical and physique progression, but also like their mindset and how they approach things. And that is something I think as an industry, we need to move and really push the standard forward. And I think one really big thing we could do is really empowering women to build muscle and become a stronger, fitter, better version of themselves, because there's a large time course. We're going to be on this earth for a long period of time. We didn't get to go into this, but I do want to cover eventually like the multifaceted benefits of building muscle for women, especially. But one of the biggest things is all of us out there. So all women out there. So I'm going to exclude myself from this because I'm not a female. So in life, you're going to be born, you're going to pay taxes. And for women, you're going to go through menopause. And so that is a time period in which you need to build your metabolic bank, because muscle is what's going to be one of the number one things to help with decreasing the risk of osteoporosis. It's going to decrease the risk of fracture risk. It's going to help with your metabolic hormones. It's going to help with your body composition in those later years. And if you're able to really bank as much muscle as possible by focusing on building that muscle, especially, in your perimenopausal phase or even earlier, it's going to put you in the best position to succeed. And what's unfortunate is I work with many women. The vast majority of women that I work with is between the ages of 35 and 55, but I work with many women in perimenopause and menopause. And they were from the generation, they're a little bit older than I am, but they're from a generation where resistance training wasn't advocated for them. So they did excessive cardio. They went through multiple dieting cycles. They spent 20, 30 years dieting. And now a lot of these women, I'm trying to, help them and fix this now, but they're getting into the game a little bit late. And I want to make this clear. It's never too late. However, for you women out there that you're Ruby's age, you're in your 30s, you're young, or you're in your 20s for that instance, you are in such a great position to be able to set yourself up for a long life where it's prosperous. You don't have to worry. I have so many women that come to me that they're worried about going into menopause. And it's like, listen, we can't focus on the past. We're only going to focus on this moment and going forward. But you have the opportunity to put yourself in such a position to succeed. So for all you women out there, I really encourage you to look into the benefits of building muscle, to really invest some time now, instead of holding it off and saying after my next diet, or I can do this later. No, you could diet later. You can always diet in the future. However, right now is your opportunity to build muscle and also a mindset of abundance.
And this is the exact thing, because in my 30s now, they aren't the same like my 20s. I want to use this time to build exactly what I need in the future, because I want to be like I want to be able to do what I'm doing now when I'm 50, when I'm 60. I'm seeing the women come to me, and I don't want that outcome mentally, because most of their flaws, most of their issues aren't even physical. They have the capacity. It's never too late. But they're mentally stopping themselves at every single freaking chance to stop themselves. So we talked about training part 1. We talked about nutrition and mindset, a little bit on benefits in part 2. In part 3, we will be coming back at you with the benefits, but mostly because most of my clients are actually between 45 and 60. I have a lot of older women. We're going to talk about women's physiology over the years, why this is so important, and how the rules for menopause don't change, and why it is essential for you to prioritize getting strong, building muscle, and doing the things you need to do to live a better, higher quality life through those latter years. What do you say? Yes.
Sounds good.
We'll talk to you guys later. Don't forget to check out the links below, and bye.